Welcome back to the Bob McCown podcast. Obviously, Bobcat's still on the IR. Joined now by Hockey Hall of Famer, 700 Goal Club, Mike Gartner. Welcome.
Thanks, John.
So, with your role for years at the Players Association, you're also the chairman of the selection committee of the Hockey Hall of Fame. We're going to talk about that later because that's the toughest job in the world. What's the NHL alumni mean to you?
You know, it's something that that has evolved over the course of time, and I think that it is. We've had different executive directors of the Alumni Association. I think Glenn Healy, in particular, has taken some of the good work of the earlier directors and started to really put some meat onto the bone. So what it does is it gives you the ability to stay in touch with guys like you, that like me, that have played the game and are around. You're able to help in different areas. I know the Alumni Association helps with supplemental gifting that we set up as when I was with the Players Association to put funds together for guys like Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay that were making $20,000 a year.
Hard to imagine.
Hard to imagine in pension, and it was able to double and triple their pensions, which were terrible at the time. And so the players now have different pensions. So there's that group of players that's kind of catching up. So that's a big part of what I see the benefit of the Alumni Association is, but also really in many ways just getting guys together and allowing guys to still feel like they're part of what they call hockey greatest family.
Well, we remind, actually, I still remember talking to some of my friends that were players at the time, and I said, when I'm 35, I'm going to make this amount of money, and I'm going to keep making that amount of money until I retire, if not more. Mm-hmm. What are you going to make?
Yeah,
exactly. And they say, well, what do you mean? Well, what's your income life after hockey? When in your career, when did you start thinking that I can't play forever?
About halfway, actually. I really did. And I started realizing, this is a young man's game. When you're 30 years old, you feel like you're old playing hockey. Yeah. And I started playing when I was 18 years old. And I'm thinking, I have to really think through this. And I always looked at it like I tried to save my money. And my wife and I were very frugal. And we looked at it like, we're not going to live anywhere past what we think we can live at when we're finished playing hockey and the big paycheck stops coming in. Thank goodness I caught a little bit of the bigger paychecks as the end of my career came along, but we started a business halfway through my career. We started a business with a former teammate of mine, Wes Jarvis, who I played with in Washington. And we started a hockey arena business that we still run 28 years later. And so the quick answer to your question, John, is that I started thinking about it early.
Were you an anomaly or were you the norm?
Well, I think everybody was starting to think about it. I'm not the anomaly in that I was thinking about it. I was maybe a little more the anomaly that I actually did something about it, right, and put things into place so that when we were finished playing, and I say we because my wife was a huge part of it. We're celebrating our 42nd wedding anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And it's part of what we had to do as a couple and as a family and try to figure it out from that perspective. But we focused on it.
The other thing, Mike, is that it really appears that the three entities, the Players Association, the league, and now the alumni, they seem to be in closer version of lockstep. They seem to be working much closer than ever before. And that has to be a positive for retired players.
It has to be a positive for retired players, and it is, because they do have to work in lockstep, because there was a time where it was a contentious relationship. What the contentious relationship between the Players Association and the NHL spilled over into the Alumni Association that needed funding from both, and you're trying to make one side happy and the other side's not when you make that side happy. And so I think it's gotten to a better place where both the two major parties, really, which is the NHL and the NHLPA, appear to be fully on board in supporting the alumni, which I think is a very positive thing for the alumni, but then it is a very positive thing for the players.
So your career, obviously Washington, Minnesota, Toronto, the Rangers. Do you have a favorite spot?
I don't have a favorite spot. I played the longest in Washington. I have great memories from there too. My older kids were born in Maryland. They retired my jersey there, so it's always a real positive thing. I feel really good that they were able to finally break through and win the Stanley Cup. The Rangers were such a quality organization. I loved playing for the New York Rangers. And then playing for my hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. So it was great. And we had good teams at that time, and
you had a good playoff run everywhere, didn't you?
We did. We had a good, I never got to the end of it, but we did have some good playoff runs. Yes. And it's fun to be deep in the playoffs. So I think that we all as Leaf fans would love to see that happen sometime.
Do you still have the passion for the game? I mean, I know you talked about your business, but you know, I'm one of those guys. I still love being around the game, going to the arena. Never played it, so I don't have to worry about that part, and don't have to worry about the medical issues. But do you still have passion for the game?
So I still play, and so I like watching the NHL. I like watching a good hockey game. If I'm watching a game and it's not a very, very good game, I'll just turn it off. So I don't have that kind of passion for it, but I do like, I follow the Toronto Maple Leafs. I follow the Rangers when they're going. I follow the Capitals, but not that closely. But I was a participant. I loved playing the game, and I still play once or twice a week. I'm 63 years old, and I still really enjoy playing. And, we still are probably more competitive than we should be at 63 years old, but it does happen. But I do like playing. I like watching my grandkids play. I like playing the game.
I joked with you before we started that you have the most thankless job in the game right now. And the only reason I know this is because you replaced one of my great friends, John Davidson, as the chairman of the selection committee, the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I know you can't divulge a lot of stuff. You sign an NDA to talk about, or what you can't talk about. But do you have any frustration with that? Do you have any feeling of do people know enough about the Hall of Fame selection committee before they start criticizing?
Probably not, for sure. But I would just take a little different approach, and it's a challenging position, but I love it. I mean, it is a great position to be in. We all look at it. There's 18 members on the Hall of Fame selection committee. I'm the chairman. I'm a voting member as the chairman, and it's an honor to be in that position. And of course, it comes with a lot of challenges because everybody second guesses you all the time, and most of the time, it's not so much who you put in the Hall of Fame, it's who you didn't put in the Hall of Fame. But we've always taken the approach that if you're a Hall of Famer, you will be a Hall of Famer. It might not be when everybody wants that person to go in, but and there's a lot of nuances to it because there are new members that come in every year. You serve a 3-year term. You can serve up to 15 years total, but there's a turnover, and so sometimes there's a little different flavor on who these members are bringing forward, because you have to be brought forward for consideration by a member. And so everybody's eligible. If you haven't played for 3 years, you're eligible. If you've played in the NHL, then you're
eligible, but not necessarily nominated.
Correct. Exactly.
It's unlike baseball.
Unlike baseball, very much unlike baseball. Baseball is a very public thing. There's a whole bunch of people that vote on it and everything else. Hockey has a different approach. There are 18 members. You have to be brought forward by any one of those members, and no one knows who brings them forward. And I'm certainly not going to say anything now, but it's actually a very, very good process. It's a transparent process from the standpoint as you know who the members are, you know when it's going to happen, you know who's eligible, but then it's speculation.
Right. And so you bring up the word transparent. Again, I don't know what you can or can't say. Could it be more transparent? Could it be in order to satisfy a lot of the frustration that those of us outside of the bubble have?
Yeah, fair question. And the answer is, of course, it could be transparent if you change the process.
Right.
It's as transparent as the process can be with the way it's set up right now. And there's some pros and cons to it. And the pros obviously are the easy ones, and that is that those players don't know all the time that they've been voted on and they've not been voted in. They had their name up, they've not been voted. Then they've had their name up, they've not been voted in. We think it's a very positive thing. Eric Duhatschek, for instance, who was on our committee, wrote a real nice piece about a year and a half ago as someone that is a journalist, but at the same time was on our committee, and we have journalists on our committee even now. And so it will be interesting to see as they cycle themselves off the committee what they thought of it after they have been through it a number of years.
We actually had Eric on the show the day after you announced your group, and he was, he was very sympathetic and was very positive about the process as it exists. I think he'd like to see more transparency, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. Can you tell me what it's like to pick up the phone and dial the number and tell, someone that they're in the Hockey Hall of Fame?
I sure can. And it's an emotional thing for Lanny McDonald, and I do it because Lanny's the chairman of the Hall of Fame. I'm the chairman of the selection committee, and we make the calls to all of the people or the families. In the case of the most recent one, Pierre Lacroix was going in, and we got in touch with his wife Coco, and Pierre just passed away 2 or 3 years ago. And she started crying as soon as Lanny said hello. And then I got on the phone and said, we just want to let you know that Pierre has been selected for honored membership in the class of 2023. And she started to cry. And of course, Lanny and I are emotional. I'm just good. Lanny, just start talking, because I can't say anything. And then we talked the year before. It was Herb Carnegie. When Herb Carnegie was voted in, we talked to his daughter Bernice, and the same thing. They were crying in the background because it's an emotional thing, as you can imagine. We talked to Mike Vernon this year, and Mike Vernon says he thought Lanny was calling up to see if he could arrange a golf game because they play golf out in Calgary. And
if Tom Barrasso would ever answer the phone, right?
And we couldn't get Tommy, but they finally did get Tom, and Tom was very gracious. But it's obviously a wonderful thing to make those phone calls.
Well, listen, Mike, it was a pleasure. Thank you for all the great games you gave us. Thank you for being still part of the game when you consider what you do for the Hall of Fame, and thanks for being part of the alumni tournament today.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that, and all the best to Bob McCown. Hope everything continues to go well.
Stay the course.
Yep.